We finally got new Mac Minis and Mac Studios, but Apple's lineup is a little bit more confusing than ever because the cheap Mac Mini has a newer chip than the more expensive one, and all the desktop Mac computers have less storage in them than their laptop counterparts. So in this video, I'm gonna help you look at the 3 questions you need to answer to decide which Mac computer to buy. First, you need to know how to read the chip. So we've had M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, now you've even got an M6. The number is the generation. And then these chips can also have a word after it which describes the tier it's in. So you can have a standard M5, or you could also have M5 Pro, M5 Max, or M5 Ultra. Each step on the tiers roughly doubles something, and the newer generations always show up in the small base chips first, so a newer number on it can still technically not perform as well as an older Pro or a Max model. The question you need to ask yourself if you're trying to decide between getting a standard chip or a Pro, a Max, or even an Ultra is if your work uses every core of the computer or if it's just using one at a time. If you're doing a lot of exporting, rendering, compiling code, multicam timelines, then you're going to be working spread across every core. But for web work, writing, and even most photo editing, that really leans on 1 or 2 cores running fast. If your work doesn't spread out, then the newest base chip is going to beat an older Pro chip, and it'll save you real money. The next thing you need to check is how much are you actually holding in your memory, your RAM. RAM has 2 parts. It has capacity and bandwidth. Capacity, or the storage size, decides what fits in the RAM, and then the bandwidth determines how fast it's able to be moved. The RAM is so important because it's soldered in and it can never be added. Technically, the storage on your Mac computer also can't be added to internally, but you can always add an external SSD later. The MacBook Neo comes with less RAM than any other computer. The MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro both start with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the Mac Mini also starts with 16 gigabytes of RAM. If you get an M5 Pro chip of either the Mac Mini or a MacBook Pro, those both start with 24 gigabytes of RAM, and then with the M5 Max, you get 36 gigs. The M5 Ultra has 96 gigabytes of RAM. And you can always upgrade the RAM on any computer except the MacBook Neo whenever you go to order it. My recommendation is for most people, 16 to 24 gigabytes is gonna be just fine for more intensive workloads where you're doing a lot of video editing or a lot of heavier work, especially with the desktop computer. I really recommend trying to get at least 48 gigabytes, if not more, but it is pretty expensive in 2026 to do this. But just know, for most people, 24 gigabytes is gonna be the sweet spot because it gives you a little extra headroom over the 16. The next thing you need to ask yourself is my computer gonna live on a desk or in a bag? And I say live meaning not where you use it, but if you need to transport it around a lot, because the same chip will behave very differently in a laptop versus a desktop computer, because a fan and a wall outlet that the desktop computer uses lets it hold the higher speeds for way longer than a thin laptop is able to do it. The thin MacBooks give up on running those higher speeds after just a few minutes. They'll throttle, they'll slow down big time. So if your computer really lives on a desk and you don't need to transport it around places, I would say buy the desktop computer, and you're also gonna save money because there's no screen with the desktop computer. Put the savings into memory, get more RAM for the computer. Now let's talk about the lineup of the Mac computers. First, we've got the desktops. We've got the Mac Mini M6 starting at $900, and then you got the Mac Mini M5 Pro, $1,700. Mac Studio M5 Max, $2,500, and the Mac Studio M5 Ultra at $5,500. And each of these has a laptop counterpart. Technically, the MacBook Neo kind of stands on its own because it's using an A-series processor. It starts at $700 and is vastly limited because it's only got 256 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigabytes of RAM. And then you go up to the Air at $1,300, MacBook Pro at $2,000, MacBook Pro M5 Pro at $2,500, and the MacBook Pro M5 Max at $4,100. So if you get the same chip in a desktop computer, you're going to be saving quite a bit of money because it doesn't have Apple's insanely high quality displays, and it's going to give you much better thermal performance. Most people are going to be fine with the Air or a Mac Mini because this will give you great performance for day-to-day tasks, and the Mac Mini and the MacBook Air also vastly outperform their older models where you can still do pretty much any task on them just fine. The $2,000 base model MacBook Pro does have an upgraded display over the MacBook Air, and it's got one fan, but it still runs into quite a few thermal issues compared to something like the M5 Pro Mac Mini. And I don't expect the M5 Pro Mac Mini to perform that much better than the M6 Mac Mini, but you do get some nicer things out of the box, like it has Thunderbolt 5, and it's also got 24 gigabytes of memory, and it starts with a 512 gigabyte SSD. So that's gonna be a better computer if you wanna put a few upgrades into a Mac Mini without going all the way into Mac Studio territory. Personally, I think the M5 Max Studio is the best bargain in Apple's lineup now at $2,500 because you can add external storage to it very easily. It's got the fast Thunderbolt 5 ports on it, and it's $2,500 versus $4,100 for the next equivalent, getting it in a laptop. So that's about $1,600 of savings that you can put towards buying a nice display and improving your desktop setups. Now, there's 3 ways I still see people wasting money on their Mac computers. And the first is by buying one that just comes with 256 gigabytes of storage. Unfortunately, the M6 Mac Mini does start with 256 gigabytes, and that computer is not going to last you 5 years because you're not going to be able to hold enough applications or system data. Your attachments on your email and your iMessage are going to quickly fill that up. So please do not buy the 256 gigabyte computer. You're wasting your money. A 512 will last you much longer. The next way people waste money is by just buying based on the tier name, because people buy a MacBook Pro because it says Pro, or they also get the Pro chip or the Max chip without needing it, because most people really don't need a Max chip in a laptop computer. If you need a Max chip, or especially the Ultra chip, you're going to be much better off with the desktop computer than getting the laptop. The last way I see people wasting money is by underbuying on memory. You do not want the 8 gigabyte MacBook Neo unless you absolutely have to get the cheapest option possible. If you're just trying to save money, get that computer. It's not going to last you a long time, and you're going to be wasting your money because you got to buy a newer computer sooner. Also, 16 gigabytes is probably fine for you, but if you spend a little bit more on the 24 gigabytes, even though it hurts to get it from the factory, the computer will last you longer. You'll get more use out of it, which will save you money. I talked about a lot in this video. If you're still confused about all the MacBook models, I've got a form on my website where you can fill it out, get personalized Mac buying advice. I'll help you pick out the computer that's going to be perfect for you. And if you got any questions, drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear them. Like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming content.